President Trump has also signed a proclamation imposing a temporary 10% import duty under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974 in order to address what his administration is describing as a fundamental international payments problem affecting the US economy. Now, the surcharge, of course, will take form and shape on the 24th of February and remain in place for a total of 150 days. In fact, my colleague Sumita joins us with more on this piece of legislation.
That's right. This is a major development that is coming from the White House. In fact, U.S. trading partners, which previously struck deals with the United States, including India, will now face a 10% duty, despite the higher levels that they have agreed upon previously. This is according to a White House fact sheet. This is according to a White House statement that has been released recently. Now, this, remember, comes in after Mr. Donald Trump signed a new order of 10% tariffs on all countries. This was hours after the US Supreme Court struck down his global tariffs on imports as illegal. In fact, the president also confirmed that there were no changes to the parameters of the India-US trade agreement. So these are just some preliminary comments that have been coming in from the president after the Supreme Court came out with that order and struck down his tariffs as illegal. In fact, Mr. Trump, who had nominated two justices to nominate him, they responded furiously and in fact alleging without any evidence that the court was influenced by foreign interests. In fact, this ruling was 6-3. It was mentioned that a 1977 law that Mr. Trump had relied on to slap sudden tariff rates on individual countries pending global trade, it does not really authorize, this law does not authorize President Trump to impose tariffs. In fact, the White House fact sheet was released shortly after, and the White House states a couple of points. Let me go through them. First things first, that a temporary 10% import duty will be slapped, and this temporary import duty will stay on till the next 150 days. It will be effective starting February 24th, 12:01 a.m. It is essentially to address the balance of payments issue, boost domestic production, protect jobs, essentially what the White House fact sheet states. Other than that, it also states that some goods will be exempt from this new sort of declaration that the president has come up with. These goods include those that are already charged, those that are already under investigation under Section 232. It also exempts certain critical minerals, metals, natural resources and fertilizers that cannot be grown, mined, or otherwise produced in the US. It also includes certain agricultural products, pharma, passenger vehicles, light trucks, heavy-duty vehicles, buses, certain aerospace products, information materials, and like I stated, that articles that are currently under or will be subject to the 232 investigations. Now, what's important to note is that while this fact sheet may have come out, we're still awaiting a response from the Indian government on what really happens to the trade deal. What really happens to the 18% tariffs that Donald Trump had sort of recently brought down in early in February? What happens to them? What happens to the related agreements with respect to Pax Silica, for instance, that we signed with the US yesterday? India became part of that. What really happens to that? And if President Trump is coming up with this new, a 10% tariffs for all countries, will that also be repealed, or will President Trump come up with more tariffs? And in the face of that, how is the Indian government preparing? So lots of questions to be answered.